Hello, Internet, and welcome to my review for Goblin Slayer Episode 6. When we last left off, we got a kind of relaxing, filler-ish episode. That was a nice way to have some relaxing times with our characters and not just revel in the mortal peril that Goblin Slayer is wont to do. But that was that episode. How does this one measure up? So, the first thing we see is, this skull face, demon cult leader dramatically walking up to this naked woman who's chained up in all kinds of shit. And at first I was like, oh boy, here comes the same kind of shit we saw in the first few episodes. But then the whole thing is interrupted by my favorite character yet, and who I really want to see more of, Hero, who is just such a welcome respite from the very grimdark tone of this show that I really want her to stick around. I know, of course, we're gonna focus on goblins because it's Goblin Slayer, but I don't know. Maybe she ends up teaming up with Goblin Slayer's team to fight some goblins. I'd be down for more Hero. I have seen people just say that she is very much reminiscent of Yuki from Sword Art Online, and I absolutely agree. And Yuki is one of my favorites from SAO, so I'm always down for more Yuki-style characters. But yeah, she's so good, and I want her to show up more. She does not actually show up in this episode, because we find out it's just a story told in the tavern, in the guild, whatever. And the actual episode itself follows a much more Goblin Slayer-style, goblin hunting episode. But I'm glad that even though this is not the kind of laid back filler episode we got last week, I'm still glad they're allowing a fair bit of humor in here that was kind of missing from the past few episodes. First with Priestess and High Elf Archer knocking off ways Goblin Slayer is allowed to kill goblins. It was really funny. And then that theme keeps coming up throughout the episode. It's a really it's a pretty funny bit. I will acknowledge that. And then the whole gang heads to Watertown after we repeat the whole this isn't a discussion gag from a couple weeks ago. And this sequence, when we first get to Watertown and first run into Sword Maiden, there are a few good gags, how offhandedly, Goblin Slayer drops, oh yeah, we're seeing the Archbishop of the Law God or whatever. And how, the offhandedness coupled with, Priestess's, holy shit! Reaction there. It worked really well. Also, Goblin Slayer's initial, brushing off the fact that he's, been sung about, and the dwarf, finally, convincing him it's a good thing because, oh, if more people know about you, you'll get to kill more goblins. That was also really funny. And that really helps to elevate that scene, which is really just kind of bland exposition, I feel. It's oh yeah, goblins are attacking the town, go kill the goblins. It's 5 minutes of yeah, go kill goblins. And not even killing goblins, but telling Goblin Slayer to go kill goblins. And okay. So the humor helps that scene not be as bland as it could be. And then we end up in the sewers fighting goblins. And I noticed something, especially in that first sequence when we walk in on them in the underground. And it's that in the first episode, Goblin Slayer would lure out the goblins one at a time, right? But when we jump in here, everyone's in just this huge, melee with the goblins. And I'm not sure, if it's... I don't know, maybe it's just because Goblin Slayer, has more allies, and he can take more risks, even though Goblin Slayer has already shown himself to not really be much of a risk taker. So that's still kind of weird. And I don't really know if it's a better style of storytelling or not. Because, way back in my first review for Goblin Slayer, I did say that I liked the very, methodical... step-by-step, don't get too hasty approach that Goblin Slayer takes. And so I don't know if I like this style. The style is definitely more bombastic, but I don't know if it works as well. And then here's a little nitpick. So feel free to roast me for my nitpickiness. But once it starts raining, once like the rainwater starts to like seep down into the sewers, Goblin Slayer's like, all right, let's take out our let's put out our torches and light a lantern. And so I'm wondering, why didn't they just start with a lantern? Is there like some kind of greater visibility with the torches? I don't know. That's just kind of it's a random thing. Don't worry about it. But like, it just seemed kind of random and weird. But after this, we find out the goblins have a boat. There's like a pirate goblin, and I was really upset how little time we spent with pirate goblin, because before pirate goblin gets to do anything, gets a sword in his face from Goblin Slayer. And like, no, you have a cool goblin design. Don't kill, sure, of course Goblin Slayer is gonna kill pirate goblin, but don't kill pirate goblin first. Make pirate goblin like the last one to die. He has the best design. Don't, for any aspiring writers in my audience, don't kill off your best character first, alright? Pirate Goblin is the best of the bunch. He should not have died. Also, like, so the idea is fun, but the being on a boat doesn't really seem to matter that much, especially in the immediate. Later on, we find out, there's some mysterious benefactor who I think is also a goblin, but seems to be fairly sentient. So here's the thing. We see the silhouette of the guy I'm assuming taught the goblins to ride boats. But he also seems to be a goblin. And so the whole point of Goblin Slayer's, like, closing monologue is that the goblins could only have learned how to ride a boat if someone taught them how to ride a boat. But if a goblin taught the goblins how to ride a boat, who taught that goblin? Is there another person who taught that goblin? If so, why didn't we see that person instead of the goblin who taught the goblins? It's a weird thing. Maybe the guy's not even a goblin at all. Maybe he was just in silhouette and I couldn't really tell well. That's perfectly possible. But it was kind of weird. Also, as I've said, the boat thing, it just doesn't really do all that much. Especially because we find out that, like, unless the mysterious benefactor wanted the goblins to die, because I imagine this mysterious benefactor knew the alligator was there. So I don't know, the whole thing is just kind of odd to me. And again, I really wish there was, like, I don't know, maybe the ship had like maybe the boat had like some kind of boat themed weaponry. Instead they're just all using arrows again. And it's like, I guess it stops the goblins from being like a close range fight, but it still turns out to be a close range fight anyway. So I don't know, just didn't really. I felt when I first saw goblins on a boat, I was like, okay, this sounds fun. And then it just kind of turned into be a fairly normal goblin slaying adventure. And I was kind of disappointed. Though, that being said, there is a little bit of fun in the fight here and there. When the dwarf, like, throws a fucking rock on them. And of course, again, all of the time, Goblin Slayer's like, I can't drown you, or waterboard you, or burn you, or poison you, and there has to be another way to kill you. But then the boat sinks, thanks to Dwarf. And we get to what is probably my favorite line in the entire show so far. And it's like, they see the alligator, and they first, like, get, like, a slight glimpse of the alligator, and, like, Goblin Slayer's like, is it a goblin? And then the alligator, like, pops up, and everyone's, like, freaking out and shit, and then Goblin Slayer, just as calmly as always, like, that's not a goblin. It's the funniest thing in the show. I've given this show a lot of crap, and I think it deserves most of the crap I've given it. But that was pretty funny. That was a really fucking funny moment. And it shows it's good to be light every now and then. You don't need to marinate in that soul-crushing darkness. It doesn't do you any favors. The darkness, you need a good. So this is more of a general thing and not a Goblin Slayer thing. A comedy can be light all the time. It's nice for a comedy to have, like, little bits of, seriousness to it, but a comedy can be light all the time. I think a serious story, of course, should be as dark as the author wants. But if it's just unrelentingly dark, who wants to watch that? So these little, like, comedic asides really make Goblin Slayer a lot more watchable than, the early episodes of Goblin Slayer. But yeah, anyway, Goblin Slayer has Priestess cast a light on the alligator's tail, which draws the other goblins right to it. The alligator kills them, and they all leave. And then we find out about that mysterious benefactor, and Goblin Slayer's got a plot direction now. It's not just fighting goblins here and there. There's, someone arming the goblins. Who might be another goblin, but again, that doesn't quite make any sense. So maybe it's not a goblin. Maybe it's someone else entirely. I don't know. But anyway, all in all, this was, a pretty decent episode of Goblin Slayer. As far as Goblin Slayer episodes are concerned, this was really good. As far as, television is concerned, it was average to decent. That's just me hating on Goblin Slayer again. But, it wasn't really anything exceptional. The plot was pretty basic, They go to a town, and then they kill some goblins, and then they leave. But, there were a few fun moments. The comedy was pretty good. The fighting was actually pretty fun. And we have some kind of a large-scale plot with this mysterious benefactor helping out the goblins. I feel like I've said benefactor more in this video than I've said in my entire life. But yeah, I think that's really all I have to say. I like this episode. It wasn't phenomenal by any means, but it's the past few episodes have the past 2 episodes I'll say has definitely shown an increase in quality for Goblin Slayer. I'm always gonna be tad nervous that we're gonna fall back into episode 1, but slowly but surely, you're winning me over, Goblin Slayer. So I'm gonna leave this video off here. Hope you all enjoyed the episode and the video. If you did, feel free to drop me a like, or subscribe, or do whatever the fuck you want. I don't really care. And as always, people, keep kicking ass, and I'll see you in the future. Bye!